Former prisoners of Reddit, what is something nobody tells you about being incarcerated that you had to learn on your own? Your word is everything. Breaking your word puts you roughly on par with a sex offender. You give your word on something, it needs to be gospel. Someone gives you this, assume it is too, and be ready to go if it isn't. It's not just worth fighting over, it's essential that you do. Everything is for sale, or at least has a market value. Sustained eye contact means you're starting shoot. Someone makes it with you, assume they're sizing you up. Don't do anything for free, unless it's for someone you know. Where to put your hands, since you don't have pockets to put them in. Most prisoners just let them flail about in the air. Not having pockets really fricks you up, man. For me, the loss of everything outside of my body was the biggest shock. You have nothing they don't want you to have when you first go in, so in a way it's like being born into a new world, but fully aware. It's a steep learning curve to be sure, but truthfully, it isn't always cutthroat with nobody to trust. Sure, there are people to avoid, and if you have a decent silly, they'll point them out, somewhat like Shawshank. I was in medium security for 6 months on credit card fraud, so I wasn't near any expected dangerous people anyway, but there were still the territorial guys you just would better off avoiding. Other than that, a lot of reading for me, learning some basic card tricks from my cellie. Stuff like that. Not at all a desirable place to be emo. A friend of mine did sometime. He had internet, PlayStation and a chef made breakfast and dinner every day. They had to make lunch themselves with access to a full complimentary kitchen knives, cutlery and so on was freely available. They often went outside to shop groceries and some even went to work. Basically, the only thing was to stay away from the sex offenders. This was a medium security correctional facility in Norway. The guards just sat and watched YouTube all day and night. Seems like a dream job if you've got no soul. Had an uncle who was a guard. Said it was the most soul destroying job he'd ever had. He also said that most of the time, he got along better with the prisoners than the other guards. Yeah, a lot of the guards are hard asses. Most of them take that job for that little power they have over people. Like this one guard, he was pure deck, thought he was big and tough since we can't do shoot in jail. Then a couple years later, when I got released, I see him at the supermarket parking lot, yelled out his name, turned around and took one look at me, and ran like a beach to his car. I wasn't gonna do anything, just was gonna say what was going on. So I can see why your uncle can get along better with the prisoners than actual guards. Most of them are decks, and are power hungry. Wear slippers in the shower. And shower every day. Not doing one of those gets you beat up here in California. Current prisoner here, in the Philippines. Anything can be smuggled in, if you pay the right guards. Even prostitutes. Money equals power. You can get away with almost anything, if you have enough money. I have a question as I've never been in jail and it's bugging me like hell. How do you acquire things? Books, money, weapons, and such. You find them. They spawn randomly every day at certain spots. People also seem to just drop them from time to time. Some guards also hide them in some rooms. Been to a state prison in Ohio as a young skinny white dude. One of the most intimidating feelings I've ever felt, walking into a large building with 3 wings each filled to the brim with some scary motherfrickers. Bunk beds, no cells. I learned very quickly to keep to myself. As you can imagine, there was always tension in the air, that imminent sense violence was hanging in the limbo. Grown men packed into a tight living quarters with only a couple things of commissary to your name breeds one hell of a hostile environment. I had a short stint, but found myself constantly being aware of who and what was going on around me. There are as much drugs in prison as there are on the streets, but the price can be 10x as much. Tobacco wasn't allowed, but if you could get 1 pack of smokes in, it could be broken down into 3 roll-ups from each cig, and each roll-up sold for $5, meaning 1 pack could net you $300. There are gay men in prison who sell themselves for money or drugs. They would be very apparent as they would use certain things as blush or lipstick. Gambling is everywhere, and I saw most dudes get in trouble because they would start incurring debt and couldn't pay it off. That's when they would heat up tomato soup in the microwave and throw boiling sticky soup on someone while they slept. Saw it twice. Envelopes and soup's ramen packets were currency and prison is strictly racially divided. If you're there long enough you have to join. It was terrifying, but at the same time I meet some really interesting people and faced one of my greatest fears in life and came out the other side, all the while doing almost a social experiment as it unfolded. And the last thing I'll say is this: they say it's a rehabilitation center. That's complete bullshit. I went in for having a large amount of herb, but while in there I learned the best methods to cook crack, how to counterfeit money, how to be in D without getting caught. Our incarceration system desperately needs change. This was just my experience. My mum was in prison recently for about 3 months, and in that time 2 girls killed themselves. So I guess expect suicides. Sounds like a shooty prison. I work in a jail that's been built for nearly 10 years now, and only one guy successfully killed himself. And he died at the hospital. Summer vacations. Friend of mine was recently locked up during summer months. Because guards take vacation at the same time as everyone else, 3 days a week were spent on lockdown, meaning that 1 to 2 hours of outside time didn't apply due to staff shortage. He's out now, and very thankful for his freedom. Honestly, I think everyone should specify what country and what type of prison, because those are actually pretty freaking huge differences. From close experiences, the nicer Finnish prisons include work, getting paid for it, going to sauna, and probably sleeping in same room with someone who has killed someone, and seems nice now. Rest of the time everyone gets ridiculous amounts of nice food and works out a lot. The so-called hardened prisons mostly seem to differ, in that the prisoners are alone for longer times. The one thing that seems to be same in every story is that no one wants to start shoot, because it's just bad for everyone. For the most part, it's not like you see in TV and movies. Don't start shoot, but be able to defend yourself, if need be. Keep to yourself, and don't stand out in any way. This also means don't be the funny guy that makes everyone laugh. You want to be as invisible as possible really. Don't try to be nice and give people stuff. They will, at first, make it seem like it makes you cool with them, but it doesn't. It's way louder all the time than you think it would be. There are always people who never seem to sleep. Be prepared to lose privileges because of other idiots. Will happen all the time. Unlike TV and movies, greats don't happen as much as the jokes have you believe. Lots of gay stuff goes on, but is usually consensual. The people who play dominoes all night long are the worst. For some reason, if you play dominoes, you can't just put the domino on the table. You have to freaking slam it on the goddamn metal table at 3 in the morning. No one is trying to sleep. Keep slamming those dominoes, no one cares. If you slam dominoes on the table while most people are trying to sleep, frick you. Not a long time I hear, but show everyone respect. If you bump into someone, it is critical to say I'm sorry man, I wasn't paying attention. You never shake hands, you fist bump. You can't be nice to the guards, just polite. There are a lot more illiterate people than I ever thought possible. My dad did time. Got kitchen duty. Was serving food. Dude said to my pops, you better put more on this plate. My dad knew if he did he would be considered a beach. He dropped the dude right in line. Had to go to seg, but when he got out was considered the man of the pod. My 511 glasses wearing white father. It makes me smile thinking about it. He died of a brain injury suddenly 2 years ago. The worst thing about prison was the dementors. They were flying all over the place and they were scary, and then they'd come down and they'd suck the soul out of your body and it hurt. Here is a really important one. Try not to talk about your time or open up about how you are feeling about it. Let's say you are fighting a case, and that case has you doing 16 months. I understand that a lot of people would be stressed about it. I get it. Jail freaking sucks. That being said, try and keep that shoot to yourself, unless somebody you are cool with asks. Saw some kid that didn't really know how to handle himself in there, found a race card, and was just chilling. On the back end he was fighting a case of involuntary manslaughter, and that's already a red flag. Killed somebody accidentally, crime was of stupidity. Kid's family had money and a top lawyer, so he was going to do 10 months in county. Not bad at all. He kept asking for advice from jailhouse lawyers for regular prisoners, and it started to get annoying. The rep in charge of the Peckerwoods could not take it. White, mid-40s, family man, going to do 10 years for assault, and organized the jumping of this kid. At night 2 men on both sides of the bed covered him in his sleep with a sheet, while 2 other men beat the crap out of him. Moral of the story, there is always somebody who is going to do way more time than you, and doesn't want to hear your shoot. I was in maximum security juvie. When I was getting screened they asked me, have you ever contemplated suicide? Ever? Yeah, sure, I've thought of it once or twice. Boom. Suicide watch. No clothes, a tarp for a blanket and a tarp wrapped pillow. I was miserable and had to convince whoever was in charge that there was a misunderstanding. I wasn't in very long, but I'm pretty good with authority, so my stand was fairly relaxed. Don't look at people, be respectful, and keep to yourself. I was 15 at the time. Buddy friend of mine did time in super maximum and eventually medium. But he said you never want to do county time when you can do state or federal time. County turns over too much. USA. Well, my first night in prison, after lights out, one of the prisoners yelled 63. The entire prison started laughing. I asked my cellmate what I was missing. He told me that they had all been in there so long that they had the same jokes. To save time, they just decided to number them. I asked if I could give it a whirl. I shouted 37. The prison erupted into the most loud laughter I have ever heard. I asked my cellmate what joke I just told and he responded, I don't know, I haven't heard that one before.
N.
Just how freaking boring it is. Sure, shoot goes down here and there, but unless you're in one of the small amount of truly terrible prisons in the country, day-to-day life is just freaking boring. There's a 99% chance you will not be raped, nor will have to beat/shank someone to prove you're not a punk, or whatever. Prison rape does happen, but there are enough people that are willing participants that in most prisons it's a non-issue. One thing that's a massive misconception is that the large majority of inmates don't know what other inmates are in for, and you damn well better not ask, unless it's your cellmate or someone you've gotten close with. Most people don't care what you're doing time for, unless you're a rapist. Those sorts of things usually only get found out because of people knowing each other on the outside. Some prisons actually supply 6 offenders with fake paperwork showing them convicted of non-6 crimes, to give them a cover. Anyway, as for how to act and make it in prison, it's really not all that complicated. Give the same respect you'd expect in return. Mind your own business. Don't make weird eye contact. Don't lie and make shoot up. Yeah, no. Normal social interaction for the most part, but a little more prison-y. Don't let people take advantage of you. Don't say you'll do things you're not going to do, and don't avoid paying someone back. Basically it's like high school, except drama is taken much more seriously. I know someone who works for Depth of Corrections CA. He says drones are where it's at. All kinds of crazy shoot is brought in via drone right now, and prisons are busting as trying to figure out how to make them drone proof. But for the moment it's a huge problem and changes everything about prison rules and behavior. This is possibly the best thread I have ever read on Reddit. It's like watching a prison TV show just reading these stories. Mad respect to the people who made it out and are getting back into society. It's way more boring than people make it out to be. Once I kinda got used to it, became very mundane. I was locked up with this one black dude who was in for shooting another guy over a disagreement in a dice game. He pissed a lot of people off but somehow survived 2 murder attempts with shanks. They found out he was allergic to eggs and some guy in the kitchen put some in his food. His windpipe closed and he suffocated to death. I heard about another guy who died over the course of a few weeks as the kitchen staff put tiny glass shards in his food every day. The head Aryan Brotherhood guy was an openly gay rapist. Lucky for me I'm an ugly dude.